From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have my good friend, Mr. Todd Jones, with me on his regular Copywriting with Todd Jones segment, and we're going to talk about part 2 of his copywriting process. Grab a drink, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Hey everybody, Stunning Digital Marketing is your digital concierge. We help you put the pieces together to make your marketing success. Specialties we have including WordPress design and development, WordPress security, which is one of our most popular offerings, ads, and more. So if you want to succeed in the digital world, go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and have a look at what we offer, and we'd be glad to help you. And let's jump on a call and make it happening. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey, everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Todd Jones, and we're talking about his copywriting process, part 2 today. How are you today, Todd?
It's a Monday. I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, me too, and that's about the word. Um, when we did our show a couple weeks ago, we talked about your 4 parts of your copywriting process. Do you want to recap those for the
Yeah,
listeners?
sure. So there are 4 parts to it: research, strategy, execution, and distribution. With the research, I tend to refer to internal and external research. Learning more about the company, the business, and all the different things that their brand messaging, those kinds of things. And then externally, competitor research type of information, not to copy, but to differentiate. And then the next one is about strategy. And man, 2 weeks ago, I slept since then. I can't remember exactly what I said, but definitely this is where you begin to start to strategize, like what you're going to talk about for what kind of copy piece that you're doing, whether it's website copy or even a blog post, really, like what's your strategy that you're going to utilize. And some of that, well, we'll get into execution, but just kind of like putting it together and determining like um, what kind of uh, maybe copywriting formula you're going to use for the copywriting piece that you're writing, assuming that's you're writing web copy. If you're using a blog, what kind of strategy you're employing for the blog post, that kind of thing. Number 3 is, of course, the execution, and this is where really the rubber meets the road. Like, you've come up with the research and you've done the strategy, and within that strategy section, you're also probably going to outline. So if you're like you're writing an article, you're probably outlining it. I was reading something today, actually, about I think James Patterson, but one of the great novelists, and one of the books, like the first book he wrote, he had like a 50-page outline for his book, and he never started till he wrote an outline. If we could all be so good, sometimes I don't do that very well. I'll start with a general idea of an outline, and I'll start going. Writing pieces will go where they go sometimes. It's like very much like a living organism sometimes. But an outline is really like a framework, right? It's like, this is the path we're going to follow, kind of deal. So when you get into that execution phase, you're following that outline that you put together in the second strategy, and you're really just making you're actually putting the rubber meets the road kind of deal. And so you want to create that content. And one of the reasons, like in the website copy framework, I gave you a framework for the homepage, the about page, and a service page. And so, which really, like I've told people before, the website copy framework, which is where this process comes from, um, you really do one in phases 1 and 2 with website copy framework. That's really what it's for. And to be fair, that's where most people struggle when it comes to like writing about their website or writing a blog post. Like, what do I say? It's really like, what do I say? And that's where the website copy framework comes from. It helps you with their first two. When you get to three, you're actually executing your strategy. That means writing. Now, I don't want to go into some long blog post about writing because that's not what we're here for. But you learn very quickly when you do a lot of writing that writing in itself is its own skill, right? One book I recommend to everybody in business that's writing anything is Everybody Writes by Ann Handley. She is a expert in digital marketing and content writing because she does a lot of that. But also, if you follow somebody like Kaylee Moore online, she has some very good resources as well about just about writing in general. I actually have a this little ebook that I'd created a long time ago with like 10 resources, but um, the first one I include is the one by Anne. And the thing that Anne does so well is that some of the little writing techniques that we employ, she actually brings those out very well in that book. It's all about writing for online, certainly. There's going to be writing offline. Obviously, we write things offline, but in this day and age, we're writing mostly like things online. So your website,
Well,
copy,
no
a
question.
blog post, an email, those kinds of things.
Even my brother, who's a journalist, not a
Yeah,
journalist,
he's an entertainment journalist. I know.
he's
Yeah,
not,
I'm a little jealous of him to be honest with you.
and he's writing more for online publications today
Yeah,
than he ever wrote for online back when he started. He was written, no, he still does some print, but not as much. A lot of it's online stuff
right.
now.
Sure. Another resource I would recommend to your listeners in this execution stage because editing is a big part of it, but her book is way more than editing. It's the book by Maddie Osman, which I know you've had her on the show. That book, she also does some tips on like how to write and how to format and how to structure. And so I think if you had her book and Ann's book on your desk, you would be a better writer quickly. But there are other good writers out there. You know, there's a
But,
Stephen King book that I've never bought or read, but I understand it's a really good book. There are certain things you want to do with your writing, like, you know, you want to not just tell, but you want to show. You know, you want to employ visual imagery with your writing, and you know, Anne and Maddie, and even some of Kaylee's stuff. You'll learn how to do that. They're all excellent. I'm you know there's a lot of books and resources out there about how to write better. The thing about you, what you really need to do in the business field, and it kind of depends on your business, but I would imagine most people listening to this are not super large corporations. So formal academic sounding writing is best left in the classroom.
yes,
Unless you're a corporate business, you know, you've got, you know, this huge conglomerate type of a deal. But if you're what most small to medium businesses, you should keep the formality out of the writing and
there's
create more what I call is casual professional.
there's no question there, Todd. I know a couple of people have written academic thesis over the years, and when I listen to them talk, it drives me up the wall. It's
Yeah.
like, can't we have a discussion around your
Mhm.
thesis without being so formal and so academic? And
Yeah.
academics almost come
Well,
across. I hate
and
to.
that is the context of academia. You know, I know some people like that too, and they're not going to talk about, you know, when we put on our academic hats
Yeah,
in whatever field it is, we tend to talk more deep, and we tend to talk more academic, and it's just kind of like it's like a world. But I once heard a story, and not really a story, but they called it the bar test. It
yeah.
was how to reach out to people on LinkedIn, but the bar test. And what he said was, and I can't remember the guy's name. I wish I could. I hate to not give the guy credit, but it's very good. So what he said was, pretend, and this is great with your writing too, especially for web copy or blog posts or social media, whatever, emails. Pretend you're sitting next to the CEO or whoever your business guy is at the bar and you're talking to him. is very good advice. So we don't want to lose our professionalism. That's why I call it casual professional. You don't want to lose your professionalism. You may talk about professional terms like in your industry. If it is something that your target audience understands, you're in good place. But
But if they
if you're
don't,
using lingo that only you know in your industry, but your target audience doesn't understand it, you're probably losing them. So, you know, explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. you
yeah,
know,
I agree, and it doesn't make for good conversation. Like,
no,
and and it's one of the problems with academics, more than tech people, because I've lived in that tech space all my life, and it's the same problem. You have to dumb down your language depending on who you're talking to. Academics don't seem to want to dumb down their language. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" And it's like, "Nothing.
I
I just."
have I have mixed emotions about that. So when I was in college, I went to a small Baptist private school for college, and I cherished my education. And my professor, one of my professors, he taught religion and philosophy. I had him for philosophy, and let me tell you, I struggle with philosophy. But I think it made me a better thinker. Now I couldn't tell you what philosopher had what argument. I don't remember those things, but I do remember the mechanics of debate and thinking rationally and following things to its logical conclusion. Those kinds of things stuck with me, not necessarily who said what and what the argument was and all that kind of stuff. But he did a presentation at chapel. We had chapel, Baptist school, right? And he told it was he made a case for why we should think deeper and higher.
I'm not saying
So
it couldn't. It's how we communicate it. There's a
sure,
difference.
absolutely, it's always context, right? But I will say this: maybe we should hang out with some academians a little bit in certain fields, just so that we will think a little bit deeper. Because if we are always thinking on the fifth grade level, even as professionals, it doesn't challenge our thinking too much. But like I said, it's mixed emotions. From when it comes to communicating on your website, your blog posts, you don't want to be too immature with your content. In other words, too much like a fifth grader. You probably want to be more like 10th or 11th grade, I would say.
I
But you don't want to be academic because but at the same time, Rob, especially when I'm writing articles, I find myself on, what is it, Harvard Business Review website, looking at stuff and gleaning information from that.
Yep.
And then, some of the people over the years that I have followed, and especially in storytelling, are in the academic world, but they're also in the business professional world.
The
So I think
difference.
there's a place for that. I don't know where that line is, to be honest with you, but I think it's always best to default toward being as plain and clear as you can, but having deep insights, if that makes sense. So
My
um,
answer would be when you're communicating it, whether you're so my issue isn't learning from academics. I think learning is a big part of what we do in this field. You and I have talked about this. I'm a
mhm.
lifelong learner with a massive amount of accreditations after my name, not to boast, but that's just how I
Yeah,
learn. I take courses, I learn, I'm always reading. You know me, I've always got a podcast on the go. That's not the issue to spur the creative thinking and spur looking deeper. The problem is it's how you communicate that.
yeah,
I think where academics have that problem is they don't always communicate to their audience, they communicate to themselves, which
yeah,
is
I
what.
agree.
So
Yeah.
we have to go there
But
because
I'm going to assume that the people listening to this are not academians per se.
yep,
They're business owners. Now
yep,
they may have academic experience. Some of them may teach an academic institution, but they're business owners. One
agreed.
of the ways you can cut through people not understanding, um, one of the ways you can cut through people not understanding what you're talking about is by using stories and analogies.
Yep,
And
I
that is a proven fact. That's not something we come up with something that's just out of the thin blue air. If you go read Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall, or the Perfect Story by and Eber. They both say the same thing. They've done studies. It is a way to help bridge the gap between the rational side of the brain and the more abstract side of your brain. So if you are struggling, and really, I'm not trying to get religious here, but if you go back to reading the Bible, what did Jesus do? He told stories. They're called them parables, right?
No
He was
question.
trying to make a point. And so
When you think
in even in
about
life, whenever you watch a movie, they use stories. So
when you
sorry.
think about it, it's okay. The Bible is really a collection of short stories. When you think about it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
nobody ever breaks
Hmm.
it down that way. But the Bible,
Yeah.
and what I would
Actually,
encourage.
I go one further. Pretty much every religion, not that I've read every religious text by any stretch of imagination, but every religious text that is considered scripture by their own religious um, group is usually a collection of stories.
Yes,
Almost all of them. So, and again, like I said, I haven't read them all, but that's pretty much what they are. It's
no question.
storytelling. So that tells you. I mean, I don't want to get it. Obviously, we can go down the storytelling rabbit hole as well. But my point is, you're in execution stage here, and you got to use all the tools at your disposal. And some of the things we talked about here is it helps you communicate what you're doing a lot better. And up until just a few weeks ago, that was the end of my process. And I added another one, which we're going to talk about, and
So
it's distribute or distribution.
And I agree. And let me jump in before you get going. It's You can do one, two, and three, but if you don't distribute content, one, two, and three really don't matter.
Well, it's like, are they going to hear what you're saying? Now, I think in 2024, it's a little bit harder than it used to be to do,
Oh, no.
but yeah, there's a lot of reasons behind that. But we'll reference Ross Simmons again, our buddy. He's Canadian. He has a book out. I'm sure you read it or bought it. I forget the name of it. Pull it off your shelf. What is the name of it?
Uh,
Distribution or something like that.
it's in the
Content
closet.
distribution. Huh?
It's in the closet right now.
Yeah,
But yeah.
anyway, I can't remember the title of it. And much apologies, Ross, if you're listening to this.
And by
But
the way, if you want good info from Ross, and I know I touted him in the last episode, go follow his podcast.
oh
He's a
yeah.
smart man. You need to follow Ross on X. You need to follow him on other podcasts. You need to go listen to what this man says, because every post, every podcast he puts out there is gold. Everyone.
Yeah, and Ross is an interesting fellow in a lot of ways. He's a big, huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I forgive him for that. And
Oh,
but
I'm a Cowboys fan.
yeah,
So,
I know. Yeah. And he
but
also, if I remember right, when he was a kid, said he wanted to grow up to be a WWE wrestler,
he did.
superstar. So Ross is, there's a lot of overlap there with me and him. But Ross, he's the one that has really pushed the distribution mantle for a long time. And his book kind of gives you the basic overview of what it means to distribute what you now. Here's the deal, when we talk about distributing things, we usually talk about it in terms of your blog posts, like, right, you write the blog post and you distribute it.
But
That we use the words remix and redistribute and those kinds of things, because what you're doing is repurposing your
purposely.
content for other formats. And he's one of the best I've ever seen about, instructing you to do that. You got a blog post, you can chop it up. Videos, I'll tell you somebody else. We've already mentioned him, Chris Van Vliet, who does the videos or the interviews with many the. It's not always just WWE superstars. He's done a lot of WWE superstars, but he's also done some from other promotions, including Joe Hendry. Say his name, Joe Hendry. Anyway, I'm sorry. I get really keyed up about Joe Hendry. He's awesome. But anyway, but his whoever his producer is does a fantastic job of slicing up bits of the video that he shares on LinkedIn. I mean, not LinkedIn. I'm sorry, Instagram. NV does on Facebook too. So you get these little sections of the interview, and like if you want to go back and listen to the whole interview, you can. And his interviews are not short. I remember listening to a whole bunch of them one night. I won't tell you what was going on that night that I was trying to avoid. But something was going on that night I was trying to avoid that the rest of the world was paying attention to. And I went in there to his YouTube page, and I'm like, okay, I want to listen to some of Chris's videos. And but they do a great job of like not just slicing it up for social media, but also actually on the YouTube channel. So I remember listening to Chelsea Green, that interview, which another Canadian, right? Um, but they have like titles in there, like, okay, you can skip to the section you want to listen to. And all of his videos are like that. And so that's how I listened to like four of his podcasts, 4 hours worth of podcast in one night, because I was skipping to the part I wanted to listen to. So, but he does a good job of slicing his videos up, which you get on Instagram and Facebook. So so and they get David Garfinkel. I was on his podcast a while back, and his producer Nathan Frazier does a good job with that as well. So they'll slice that up and drop it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and you can watch that and go back and watch the whole thing. That's just video and podcast. Certainly, you can slice them up and make them for a TikTok video. You can turn them into an Instagram video. You can turn them into Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels. I mean, this stuff's all beyond me. But when you write a blog post, maybe you got a 1,200-1,500 word blog post, and you got a lot of good information there. You can absolutely slice that up. One of the things I have done too, which is something that is LinkedIn allow you to do, you can create a PDF, actually slides, save it as a PDF and upload it to LinkedIn, and it becomes a slider, their carousel deal, which is kind of cool. So I have some content I could probably, in fact, this process, I could probably do that.
Speaking of PDFs and LinkedIn, did you recall that LinkedIn owns a site called SlideShare,
Yep.
which allows you
Yeah.
to do exactly that, which
Yeah.
I've used over the years for
Yep.
doing presentations where
Yep.
I'll import the PDF to SlideShare and then just embed that code on my website. So there's a
Yep, you can. That's a great way to share a slide. Although I don't do that very much anymore, but I have done it in the past.
that's Word document
Um,
too, by the way.
but if you take a presentation, if you just create a simple presentation, and you have like 4, 5, 6 points, really not hard to do with Canva anymore. You can use their docs to presentation feature, create it, edit it, download it as a PDF, and upload it that way to LinkedIn. It automatically becomes a carousel. It's fantastic. And so that's another way. There's a lot of different ways. Your Twitter threads, right, has become a thing, right? So what I said, one of the reasons I said that it's harder in 2024 than it was maybe even just 3, 4, even a year or 2 years ago, is the algorithms have massively changed. I call them the algo
Oh,
gods.
there's no question. I mean, it used to be if you put out a post 10 years ago or 15 years ago and you were doing anything respectable, you'd rank and you'd get,
Yep.
I mean, point and check. One of the most successful posts I ever put out was undercover, was under, I found a business scam. And the long and the short of it is I put out a post how this company was scamming business owners.
Mhm.
Well, my post hit so many hits that the company I attacked, and by the way, when I was done, both the FBI and the RCMP were involved. So I should
Mhm.
tell you that's how far it went.
Mhm.
And Toronto Police's fraud squad was involved because I have contacts there. So I had the whole world involved. And they got so mad that they signed me up for all these business directory services that automatically sent me emails trying to pitch their services automatically. It
Mhm.
got to the point I was getting 500 messages an hour in my inbox. Yeah,
Oh boy. Yeah.
because that the point I'm making is that's how concerned they were with this blog post that hit
Mhm.
social media with my following. Now, to do that today, they probably wouldn't have the same concern because the algorithm's totally different.
What social media were you posting that on? All of them?
X, X,
X.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, so the anything that operates on an algorithm, which is pretty much your social media platforms and Google, is stymied by the algo gods. So I'll do a little back end. I do not consider myself an SEO specialist by any means. I just try to follow people I like and I learn from, and there are a few of those. I'm a fan and follow Ann Smarty. I've known her since 2016. I follow the DJ. Um, right now, I'm losing. I'll think of her name after the show goes off. But blonde-headed lady, she's a DJ by night and an SEO hero during the day. And then obviously I follow the SparkToro team, which is not really an SEO company, but they have a software and they're kind of in it. So the first time I heard anything related to zero click, and this goes back to our distribution of social media, is when Amanda Natavid, I can never say her name right, and so I hope she forgives me as well. But she did this Twitter thread called Zero Click Content, and eventually did an article. Actually, as far as I know, I would have to clear this with her. I'd have to like double check. I think she did the thread first and then she did it was really an example of zero click content. She talked about zero click content, and this is what, and now they talk about zero click search. That's a new term that's come up in the last couple of years.
Yep.
That's because the search engines, at least Google, is have been experimenting with, depending on the actual search query, uh, doing AI generated content. So you
No
could
question.
say, how do I get me a WS Forms cap? Put that into Google. Yeah, you're wearing it. And then an AI would generate the answer. This is how you get a WS Forms cap. You go to the
And by
WS
and by
Forms
the way,
website.
Mr. Westgard, if you're watching or listening, you now owe Mr. Jones pizza as well as me, but that's another story. So,
Anyway, but that's the example. A lot of it has to do with the query because some queries I'll put in there and there won't be no AI generated thing. But most experts think that that's probably where we're headed, like completely at some point, which is kind of frustrating, but it's causing an upheaval in the SEO. So anything that is ran with algorithms, so that can be the search engines, and I'll say that as a general because obviously we look at Google as the search engine, but there's still Bing and DuckDuckGo and several others out there as well. Search engines that are based on algorithms, your social media platforms, all of them, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X or whatever it's called now. I don't really. That's about the Facebook. Those are the ones I pretty much use. I don't use some of the other ones, but they're all based on algorithms, which puts what LinkedIn or whoever wants toward the top to have more visibility. Here's a good example. Last week, I took some courses
yep,
in
saw
the
them.
community building, and
Yes.
so I earned two certificates. Well, once I uploaded, I did not make the post. They made the post. I just hit post, I added my certification because I can, which is kind of cool. Like, well, add these certifications to my LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn created, it's basically, I don't know if it's AI generated, whatever, but and the wording is their words. I'm thrilled to announce that, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Anyway, I just went with it. So why not, hit that, let people know. Well, I got more reactions from those two posts than anything else I put on LinkedIn. And I thought about it, Rob, and I thought that was because this post came from LinkedIn. They wanted me to put that post up because I'd made that certification, and that means they gave it way more visibility than anything else. So this is what we're fighting with the algorithms. I call them the algo gods. Distribution is still a thing, but you have to play it differently. You cannot, we used to just have one social media post and just plant it on every platform. And it's the same thing, worded the same way. You can't do that anymore. If you want to get any kind of traction, you actually got to employ some copywriting
And,
chops.
and not do you not only have to employ some copywriting jobs, you need to pay to play. And
Yeah, and well, that would be the next thing. In order to get even more visibility, is to use their boosting programs, and all of them have one. In
if you
fact,
want,
with Twitter, they have the what is it, $10 a month or whatever to get the little, but that gives you can write longer posts and you can get more visibility. So my friend Christy Hines, who does a whole lot of talk about AI and SEO in her Twitter, her X feed, she can write longer posts and she can do stuff I cannot do because she's paying for that check mark, if you will.
and by
So
the way, if you want to learn a little bit more about pay to play, I suggest you go back a couple episodes in this podcast. And Ryan Waterbury and I, in our monthly segment last month, talked about the difference between PPC, pay per click, and SEO. And if you listen to that episode, we both think they both have a place, but sometimes the fastest round of ROI is PPC, pay to play. Just keep it.
So you just mentioned like one corner of the whole distribution model, because there is a public relations that could be employed. Some of that cost, sometimes it doesn't. Um, if you can get interviewed by a industry, like if you're a business and get featured in an industry publication, that will help boost that, get your message out a little bit more, or
Plus,
write guest article writing still has a place, just as long as you're not trying to spam it. So, um, say you're a business owner and your industry has a trade type website with a blog post, and they say, "Hey, Rob, do you want to write something? For that could be a place to help further distribute your message and get some backlinks, and backlinks still matter. So there's a lot of different things you can do.
and one
In your
more,
email newsletter, we don't want to forget the email newsletter because that's a huge part of distribution as well.
and one more, and you haven't hit on it, and it's not really writing per se, but we're doing it right now. Is show up on a podcast and talk about the article that you've written.
That's a distribution angle for sure. I mean, the ideal is that you're on a podcast that has visibility and people start to check you out and they go find you. They read your stuff on social media and they eventually go to your website. So yeah, it's all part of distribution. It is not the fast game that maybe it was 10 years ago. If you need it to be faster, you probably should pay some money
Pay to
for
play.
PPC and that kind of thing, which, so you've got to be willing one way or the other, either to fork out money if you have it to boost visibility of your posts on social media, or you've got to be able to be willing to do some podcast interviews, get interviewed by a media publication, or even traditional media, man. I mean, go on a radio show, or go on TV, get on TV, depending on, but there's
And
so many different ways. Live streaming shows, man, that is kind of where podcasting and TV has come together, is in live streaming.
do yourself
And
a favor on your website, create a media page,
yeah,
share all those media experiences. I've done that. And so when people say to me, can you show me what you like on a podcast? I just send them a media page and say, here,
yeah,
go read. Bye.
yeah. Absolutely. And so yeah, there's a distribution is there is long and there's short, and that you need in you know the short, you really involves money. Or there, it's not like you can do some other things, right? You can get if you are able to get on, let's say you're on the Pat Flynn show. Okay, that guy has lots of people listening. He's got a humongous audience. You would get a boost really quick being on a show like that. I hold out for the day that Chris Van Vliet has me on his podcast, even though I'm not a wrestler. But how fun would that be? And I would be like, it would give me a lot of visibility real quick. So
Perfect. Well,
that's one of the reasons I cherish so much being on David Garfinkel's show, because he's one of the top. He is the top copywriting coach in the world, and he had me on his podcast. So I mean, it's pretty cool.
So as we kind of wrap up, do you want to kind of mention the four things that you, in summary, that real quickly that you include in your process again, please?
Yeah. So, like I said, told you, I think in the last episode, I will give you this diagram that I created on Canva, which
Check
can be put
out
in the show notes.
check out
The
the show notes for both episodes. You'll be in both of them.
Right. Yeah. The first one is research. So you want to research internally and externally for before this project. And this thing would probably work with almost any kind of project you're doing, but this is my copywriting process. The second one is strategy. Create the strategy that you're using. That may include outlining the post or the article or the web copy, and maybe choosing the copywriting formula you may be choosing to use for your web page, that kind of thing. And number three is execution. You're actually going to create the content. And if you're writing, you want to pay attention to good writing tactics, things like you can learn from Ann Handley's book, Everybody Writes, or Maddie's book, those kinds of things.
At
And
Maddie's book.
then, yeah,
And
Maddie's book. And
buy it.
then
Buy it now.
four is distribution, and that's when you learn how to distribute your message. Let's just think in terms of message here, copywriting your message, the piece that you're writing, whatever. Where are you going to distribute it? It's probably going to start on your website, and then you're going to distribute it other places. And if you want to dive into that more, you might choose to get um, Ross Simmons's book. I think it's called Content Distribute or something like that. Very good book as well to consider doing. And he talks a little about how to repurpose and remix your content for various formats because that's what you're doing really.
Yep. And Todd, if somebody wants to talk to you about copy besides your website, copyflight.com, how's the best way?
Ping me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook. I'm T.E. Jones on Twitter, the original T.E. Jones, and
The
some
real.
form of, yeah. Well, there's a story about that. I was able to get T.E. Jones very early, like 2008 or whatever, and then one year I got tagged. I mean, it was early on. Probably a few years later, I got tagged on something on Twitter. Like, what the heck is this? This is back when people were doing these regular cross posts simultaneously with Instagram. The
Oh,
guy was tagging his buddy who was T.E. Jones on Instagram, but not on Twitter.
yep.
And I was like, why are you tagging me? He was all, he didn't think much of it. He's like, well, that's my buddies. I was like, yeah, but on Twitter, I'm T.E. Jones. Anyways, but I'm the original T.E. Jones on Twitter, or X as they call it these days. And I think Toddy Jones, some form of Toddy Jones on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Don't come to me on Instagram about copywriting. I'm just looking at cat videos and wrestling videos there. So ping me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Thanks, Todd. Have yourself an amazing day, my friend.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much for listening to the STM Show. The STM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital concierge. For all your digital marketing needs, especially WordPress security, jump on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and let's help you put the pieces together and make your business succeed in the marketing realm. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to Todd Jones for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I love you. I miss you very much. And thanks for all the inspiration over the years and your caring, your understanding, and helping me grow as an individual. Thank you, Dad.